The miracle doctor won't be a kept man. My heart belongs ashore. Chapter 401. A wise man knows better than to fight when the odds are against him. Kiran finally understood that he was under Lilian's control, or else he would not have been beaten up by her like a helpless lamb. Still, he could not figure it out. It was eerily strange. Clearly, this woman was bent on teaching him a lesson and venting her anger on him after the humiliation he had inflicted on her. If he refused to yield, he would only receive the short end of the stick, so he decided to give in. Of course, it was also because he shared a special connection with Lilian. Otherwise, he would rather die than surrender. "Chicken, you said you wouldn't give in, but look at you now," Lilian said mockingly, but her voice had noticeably softened. Kiran's body hurt so much that he felt like it was going to fall apart any second. He looked at her. "Well, what's your reason?" Lilian shook her head. "Don't know," Kiran groaned inwardly. At the end of the day, this bitch still wanted him to marry her. Suppressing this anger, he said with as much gentleness as he could feign, "Lilian, if you tell me why, I can find a way to solve this problem. Otherwise, Snow and I can't become a real married couple." Lilian raised an eyebrow. "You're still thinking about that at this point?" "I'm just telling the truth. All men are born intrinsically with a good and similar nature, you know." Thump! Lilian lifted her foot and kicked his butt. "You can't become a real married couple, but I can't be with another man either." As soon as the words left her mouth, she regretted them. She was not an immodest woman like that. "Exactly. So, we should solve this problem, don't you think so?" Kiran seized the opportunity to suggest. "There's no way to solve it," Lilian replied coldly. "I'm sure you know how. You just don't want to solve it," Kiran taunted. "Believe whatever you want. I don't need to lie to you. I don't know how to solve this problem. Your mother only said we must practice the joyful Odyssey together until level 7. "What?" Kiran exclaimed, a look of grief and indignation crossing his face. "Then tell me, why do I suddenly feel weak and drained?" "Isn't that because you had too much sex?" Lilian chuckled. "Excuse me? You know better than anyone that I can't sleep with women at all." Kiran was frustrated when he recalled how he had almost died when he tried to get intimate with Snow earlier that day. Lilian knew that very well, but Zara was the one who had taught this method to her and instructed her not to tell Kiran. Otherwise, he would be walking all over her by now. Even if she would never marry him, she was determined to torture the hell out of him. "Your mother won't let me tell you, so I can't help you." "What?" Kiran sputtered. "If this goes on, doesn't this mean you'll get to beat me up anytime you want?" "Does it hurt?" Lilian flashed him a bright smile. He refused to admit the pain, so he snorted. "Not at all. It felt just like a massage. Ow." Before he could finish, he yelped. This time, instead of hitting him, Lilian pinched his armpit. "Kiran, do you want me to prick you with your silver needle?" She began to reach for his needle. Kiran gave a start and shook his head frantically. "No, no thanks. Why are you so scared? It'll be fine. It won't hurt." Lilian beamed warmly. "Wait." A shiver ran down Kiran's spine, and he hastily called out. "Yes?" She smiled serenely. "If we go on like this, the York family won't be able to continue its bloodline. I'm the only member left, you know." Kiran resorted to gaining her sympathy. Lilian was indignant to hear this. Was she not a member of the York family? Was she not his chosen wife? She sneered. "What about your wife, Snow?" "But she can't bear children for me," said Kiran. "You can stop trying to think of a solution. Besides, who said you need to sleep with a woman to have children?" Lilian snickered. "Well, how else can I have children?" Kiran snorted. Was this witch actually suggesting artificial insemination? "You know the answer. Don't waste my time." Lilian smartly refused to let him lead the conversation. Kiran was befuddled. "Just name your price." "You're finally not thinking with your dick, huh? It's about time you got down to business." Lilian added sarcastically, "Looks like you're a masochist." Kiran thought to himself, "If I want to be with another woman, the worst I can do is kill you first. My life won't be in danger if I touch you anyway." Unaware of his thoughts, Lilian said, "First, you're not allowed to develop Dragonsmount." Kiran's gaze swept over the dilapidated buildings. The image was engraved in his mind like a pillar of shame. Unable to help himself, he asked, "Don't you want the York family to reclaim its power?" "The York family has nothing to do with me," Lilian said indifferently. "But you're my fiancé-ack." Kiran let out another yowl. Lilian removed her hand from his bottom, revealing a silver needle between her fingers. "You called off the engagement, which means we're strangers now. If you say that again, I'll sew your mouth shut." Kiran wanted to call her a psychopath, but he did not dare to say it out loud. All of a sudden, he felt that he was Lindsay, while Lilian was the one in his role. It was maddening how the tables had turned. "Second, you need to stop being so brash. If you want to kill anyone, you must inform me in advance." You're not allowed to do it without my consent. Why? I'm not your puppet. In a flash, a dagger appeared in Lilian's hand, and she aimed it at his crotch. Say another word and I'll destroy your manly pride. Kiran's eyes widened like saucers. Are you crazy? I don't mind. I'm not going to use that sorry excuse of a wiener anyway, Lilian said ruthlessly. Do you agree or not? She demanded domineeringly. What makes you think you can control me? Kiran was reluctant to give in. Lilian tapped the dagger against his cheek. Because I'm the York family's mistress. If I'm not happy, you can't be happy either. We broke off our engagement. Didn't you just say that? But I'm still the York family's mistress. There was a flicker of bashfulness in her eyes. If you want to be my woman, be my guest. I don't mind sleeping with you anyway. Kiran hurriedly shielded his crotch from her advancing dagger. Say that again, and you can say goodbye to your dick forever, she informed him icily. Kiran bit his tongue to stop himself from calling her a psychopath. Do you agree with the second condition, or not? Asked Lilian. Chapter 402. Kiran knew very well that if he agreed to this, Lilian's identity as the mistress of the York family would be solidified, and he would become a henpecked husband. He would never let that happen. If he did, he would be betraying Snow. Kiran, you'd better think properly before answering, or you'll regret it. Lilian reminded him, seeming to have read his thoughts. Kiran immediately swallowed the words that were about to leave his mouth, and he fixed her with a look. What's the point of doing this? Nothing forcibly done is going to be agreeable. Oh yeah? Lilian looked nonchalant and even somewhat smug. I find it very interesting, especially when I think of you staring at Snow, Serena, and Ivano, and Lindsay too, all those gorgeous, sexy women, but you can't lay a finger on them. That would be so much fun. Kiran seethed. This woman had an evil heart under her beautiful appearance. If you agree to my second condition, I might consider helping you solve one problem. Lilian cleverly extended another tempting offer to him. You can help me solve any problem? Kiran hated her so much that a malicious idea began to form in his mind. Smack! Lilian gave him a hard spank. Keep your disgusting thoughts to yourself, or I'll turn you into a eunuch right away. Kiran stared at the gleaming dagger. Even if I promise you this now, I'll get my revenge on you one day. I'll beat you up. I'll even. Sleep with me? Lilian's lip curled. Yes, she slapped him again. You're just asking for it right now. Bring it on. After being clobbered, Kiran was too infuriated and chagrined to be afraid anymore. Most importantly, he was certain that Lilian would not really hurt him. Lilian had not expected him to be so shameless. It's fine if you don't agree, Kiran heaved a sigh of relief. Then, give me back my strength. If you don't agree, I'll take some of your seed right now and sprinkle it out. Who knows what will be born from them? Lilian snickered. You psychopath, Kiran raged. Then just say yes, your choice. Lilian was confident she had Kiran in her clutches. Fine, I'll do it. Kiran was determined to get back at her and welch on their deal once he regained his strength. After being humiliated by her, he no longer cared about morality and whatnot. Lilian breathed a sigh of relief. The third condition, there's more? Kiran was close to losing his sanity. From now on, focus on developing Xander Corporation, accumulating wealth, and advancing your pharmaceutical business. Ignoring his reaction, Lilian continued. I didn't need you to tell me that. I was going to do it anyway. Kiran readily accepted her request. Good to know you still have a brain, Lilian quipped. Is there a fourth condition? Nope. Well, I do, said Kiran, much to her surprise. What is it? She wanted to know. Let's not call off our engagement. Oh? Surprised, Lilian asked. Why not? I'm going to sleep with you. Puffed! She burst out laughing. Kiran, are you capable of sleeping with me? Oof. What happened today was odd, but I'll definitely find out the reason. And then I can sleep with you. Sure. If you can solve it, I'll let you sleep with me. Lilian walked up to him and patted his cheek disdainfully. Let's see if you're even capable of finding your way into my bed. Kiran glowered at her. Don't worry. I'll not only get into your bed, but I'll also turn you into a baby-making machine. You'll be responsible for popping out all of the York family's Bam! She slammed her fist into his lower abdomen. Babies! Stifling his pain, he forced out the last word through his teeth. You'll have to defeat me first. Despite Lilian's fury, she did not yell at him. Kiran sank to the ground limply, his chest hurting with every breath. Stay here and reflect on what a useless piece of trash you are. Lilian got into his car and drove off, leaving him in the dust. Kiran sat on the ground, grimacing with anger and pain. He tried to sit up, but he was too weak to move a muscle, so he eventually laid down. This was the first time he felt so defeated. He had always considered himself powerful, and he had never encountered a worthy opponent since he came down from the mountain. He was mystified by Lilian's behavior today. What kind of connection could they possibly have? He could not figure out how she had managed to control him. He fell into deep thought. Meanwhile, Lilian was on the road, her gaze fixed ahead as if a heavy burden had been lifted off her. However, her face was deathly pale, and blood was trickling from her lips. "Screw you, Kiran York. You'd better grow a brain, or I'll end up being killed by you one day," she muttered. Staring ahead, she could not help murmuring again, "Mom, you knew it'd be difficult for us to be together. Why did you demand that I marry him? This will hurt both of us. If we can't undo this spell, if we really have to be together, we'll only torture each other for the rest of our lives." When she thought of Kiran's genuine love for Snow, her face contorted with pain and uncertainty. She did not understand why Zara had forced this marriage on her and Kiran. It was destined to be a rocky one from the start, not only because there was no love between them, but more importantly, because she had never thought about getting married and becoming any man's wife. Moreover, Kiran was already engaged to Snow. 15 years ago, Zara had placed a love spell on her after failing to break off Kiran's engagement with the Xander family and told her that the future of the York family depended on her. Until today, Lilian could not forget the hope, desire, and helpless plea in her master's eyes. As a child, she had been naive, but as she grew older, and when Zara grew haggard and died of lovesickness, she finally realized that true love existed in the world. Unfortunately, she knew she did not love Kiran in the slightest. Now, apart from the marriage contract and her master, her mother-in-law, whom she had called Mom for 15 years, there was nothing that bound her to the York family. However, she carried the entire burden of the York family's revival. Kiran, the man she could neither love nor hate, was her deepest pain. Lilian's eyes were full of anguish and confusion. In Bayville Hotel, Yvonne woke up to a sharp pang in her heart. Suppressing it, she grabbed her mobile phone and called Serena. Chapter 403. Serena was at home waiting for Snow and Kiran to return. When she saw that the call was from Yvonne, she blinked in surprise before answering it. "Miss Yvonne. Serena, you need to get to Dragonsmount quickly. Kiran's in danger," Yvonne said feebly. "He's in danger?" Serena shot to her feet. "Yes. If things get too tough for you, use the whistling spell. Now go." With that, her grip slackened, and she fainted again. Right before she lost consciousness, she still fought to summon and activate her birth charm. Deep inside Dragonsmount, the golden dragon came out of its cave and slithered in Kiran's direction. Even as Serena's head spun in confusion, she rushed downstairs in her pajamas. As the pupil of the Maui tribe's former saintess, she naturally knew how to use the whistling spell, but she also knew it was only used in urgent situations. At this moment, she could not be bothered to puzzle over Yvonne's identity or verify her words as she was in a hurry to save Kiran. Meanwhile, Kiran was lying on the ground, slowly recovering his strength. However, the process was as slow as a stream gradually flowing through dry land. His energy only managed to reach some parts of his body before drying up again. "Boss, I'm sure Kiran York has come to Dragonsmount." Just then, he heard voices. His heart thudded in his chest. Could it be the Imperial Dragons people? That stupid bitch Lilian thought she could spy on us, but we wouldn't spy on her. A man's sinister and cold voice came. Kiran's mind went blank, for he recognized the voice belonged to Simon West. He laid on the ground, not daring to move. In the past, killing these people would have been as easy as crushing an ant, but he was basically a helpless lamb right now. He cursed Lilian inwardly. Was she trying to get him killed? "Find him! We're going to do whatever it takes to kill him today." Once again, Simon issued an order. "Yes, boss?" With a cry, the gang swarmed toward the Dragonsmount ruins. Kiran was still lying on the ground, regaining his strength, but he felt like a fragile 3-year-old child. His whole body was as limp as a noodle. He held his breath, hoping that those people would not notice him so he could recover a little more. "Boss, there's a broken bamboo here." Someone caught sight of the broken bamboo strewn on the ground. "Broken bamboo?" Simon walked over and picked it up. All the leaves on it had been knocked off, and there were cracks all over it. "Ha ha," he chuckled. "I didn't think that whore liked being tortured." "Ha ha." The others burst into laughter, a lustful look in their eyes. Kiran thought to himself, Lilian doesn't like being tortured. She likes torturing others. I'm her victim. He swore that he would make Lilian yield to him one day, or else he would not be able to live with this shame and humiliation. Spread out and search the area. "We can definitely sniff out Kiran," Simon ordered. "Boss, why are you so sure that he's here?" one of his followers asked curiously. Given his cocky personality, he would have driven away and left Lilian behind if everything had gone his way. But now the opposite happened, which means she defeated him, Simon explained. But Kiran's so strong. Could Lilian have possibly defeated him? The subordinate asked in bewilderment and even disbelief. "I don't know, but I can say for sure that Lilian wiped the floor with him," Simon said confidently, a lewd smirk on his face. "If Lilian wasn't secretly strong, did you think the Imperial Dragon would let her secure her position? She's really a woman who can drive men crazy. I think any man would be willing to die of exhaustion in bed for her without regret." His subordinate's expression was full of expectation and even desire. Hunger flashed in Simon's eyes, but he quickly suppressed it and said, "Have you even seen Zara Yanes? If you have, you'll know Lilian's far beneath her." "Far beneath her?" his subordinates repeated as he searched for Kiran. Zara's beauty couldn't be described in words. There was a nostalgic and yearning look in Simon's eyes. "I'm afraid only a woman like her could make a man give up his wealth and success for her. Was she the kind of woman who could drive kings mad?" someone asked. "Yes," Simon exclaimed wistfully. "If she weren't so beautiful, how could we have known she wiped out the York family after being made to sleep with Titus York?" Hiss! Everyone sucked in a sharp breath of shock, but there was longing in their eyes. How they wished they could go back in time to witness the beauty of that woman. In their opinion, Lilian's beauty was already overwhelming, but Zara's beauty was just indescribable. Although Kiran was enraged by their vileness, he was also astounded by his mother's reputation. Could she really have been a woman of peerless beauty? He was curious about this mother he had never met before. After all, Lilian's gorgeousness was already beyond words, so much so that even Snow, the belle of Bayville, would be eclipsed by her. What about his mother, then? Could it be true that his father had led the York family on its road to ruin because of his mother? Wouldn't that make her a woman like Helen of Troy? He smothered the thought the instant it popped into his head. His parents had truly loved each other. Even if his mother's beauty had brought disaster, the root cause was the greed of others, especially the greed of the Imperial Dragon. Seething with resentment, he secretly vowed that as long as he was able, he would kill them to avenge his family and his parents. He was eager to regain his strength quickly, but now he only had the strength of a 6-year-old child at best, and he could not even stand up and walk. Simon and the others were getting closer and closer to him. Kiran's eyes were blazing with panic. He wished he could grab Lilian by the shoulders and ask her if she intended to become a widow. Although Simon's men were slow, they were meticulous and refused to overlook any clues. After seeing the broken bamboo, they had confidently narrowed down their target range. Kiran laid on the ground, their footsteps sounding in his ears like a death lullaby. If they found him, he would be dead meat. Just when his strength had reached the level of an 8-year-old child, he suddenly met Simon's gaze. Chapter 404. After a brief silence, Simon looked up at the sky and laughed hysterically. "Kiran, the world is unfair." As soon as he shouted, the people of Panthergate immediately crowded around and looked at Kiran on the ground. Kiran's face was pale, and his teeth were clenched. He wanted to get up, but he could not muster any strength at all. The people from Panthergate recalled not being able to join Power Hub in their quest to kill Kiran because they were poisoned, causing frustration to well up within them. The most frustrating thing was that they had no idea when or how he did it. In their eyes, it was even more humiliating than getting killed by Kiran. Now the tables were turned, and Kiran was lying on the ground before them. They were looking forward to killing him and giving him a taste of his own medicine. Kiran looked at Simon and the others. He tried to calm his nerves and said, "Simon, Kiran, since you know my name, let's get straight to the point." Simon held a sharp dagger in his hand. "Kiran, the wandering ghosts of the York family miss you a lot. Don't you feel bad that you're the only one alive? Today, I'll help you reunite with your family." Without hesitation, he lifted his dagger to stab Kiran in the throat. Kiran was feeling hopeless. He did not expect Simon to be so brutal and relentless. He did not give him a chance at all, not even to stall for time. However, Kiran did not give in. He glared at Simon with his eyes wide open. Simon ignored him as his dagger swung down. Simon was a cautious person. When he was reminded of how Kiran killed off the entirety of Wolfgate and Regulus's tragic death, Simon dared not take bets on his life. He was certain he could kill Kiran with that dagger. When Kiran saw the dagger getting closer and closer to him, he got anxious. He could not die when he had not avenged his family yet. Just when Simon's dagger was less than 10 centimeters away, he gathered all his strength to turn to the left. Thud! Simon's dagger pierced the ground after Kiran avoided it. "Damn you! How dare you try to escape?" Seeing as he could not even kill the immobilized Kiran, Simon cursed. Next, he shouted, "Everyone, kill him! Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh!" The members of Panthergate took out their blades at the same time to attack Kiran. Kiran was wailing inwardly, thinking that he was doomed. Facing this ruthless approach that ignored the principles of the martial world, he could only resign himself to his fate. He had no way out. He tried to muster the strength to get up, but he had already exhausted his energy. He plopped back onto the ground. Seeing that, Simon became even more aggressive with the dagger in his hand. Just as his dagger was about to strike, a loud rustling sound came from the bushes. Simon was startled, so he quickly stopped to look. There was a faint slithering sound. Kiran was stunned. That was the sound of a snake flicking its tongue. "Whoa!" Suddenly, a golden snake appeared. It was about 50 centimeters thick and God knows how long. It jumped out of the bushes and pressed itself onto Kiran. Kiran felt extremely uncomfortable with the icy-cold sensation and the foul smell emanating from the snake's body. Its rough scales pressed against his face. However, he also felt safe, as if he were wearing a suit of armor. Where did the golden dragon come from? Yvonne was heavily injured and unconscious, so it could not have come here. Fuck. The snake has got some guts. Simon felt like he was being played, looking at the snake. Annoyed, he lifted his dagger to stab the golden dragon. Instead of dodging, the golden dragon violently lifted its head and opened its mouth, revealing its long fangs as if it wanted to bite off Simon's arm. Simon was so frightened that he quickly retracted his hand. The Panthergate people were also frightened at how thick and long the golden dragon was, so they retreated. Kiran breathed a sigh of relief as he was lucky enough to be alive. "Damn it! Kiran, you must die!" After saying that, Simon took out his pistol and pointed it at Kiran's head. Although the golden dragon was on Kiran's body, it did not attack the people from Panthergate, neither did it react to Simon's pistol. Kiran was desperate for the golden dragon to protect him, but he had no strength to make it do that. In his desperation, he shouted to the golden dragon, "Hurry up and kill these people!" Of course, the golden dragon did not react. It did not understand him. "Go bite them," Kiran shouted again, but to no avail. Seeing as the golden dragon did to listen to Kiran, Simon felt confident. "Kiran, today is the day you die. It seems like the ghosts of the York family want you to keep them company, so there's no need to hesitate any longer." When he said that, he cocked his gun and was about to pull the trigger. Damn it, he could not just die like this, right? If so, he would turn into a ghost and rape Lilian for betraying him. He tried to push the golden dragon to attack them, but the golden dragon opened his mouth to bite him. Although Kiran was not afraid of it, he felt helpless without his strength. "Ha!" Simon was ecstatic as he pointed the gun at Kiran. Just then, the headlights from a car shone right at them. "Who's there?" Simon asked vigilantly. His men all looked around to look at the car. Before they could even speak, they heard 3 fast and 3 slow whistles. Kiran was stunned when he heard that sound. He felt the golden dragon tensing up, seemingly ready to attack. The words, "whistling spell," came to his mind. That was the whistling sound used in black magic. Mastering the whistles would enable one to control other people and countless other black magic spells. It was like a war horn. Was Yvonne here? Kiran was full of anticipation, eager to see the person get out of the car. Simon was already vigilant and said bluntly, "I'll take care of them after I kill Kiran." Once again, he pointed the gun at Kiran, about to shoot. Suddenly, the golden dragon jumped up into the air and swung like a whip. Bam, bam, bam! A series of sounds was heard. Simon pulled the trigger and shot wide. He let go, and the gun fell to the ground. The sound of the whistling spell got closer and faster, too. The golden dragon was stimulated again and went crazy. It opened its bloody mouth, revealing its glowing blue teeth, and began to bite the members of Panthergate. Chapter 405. Some were bitten on the arm, and they screamed in agony. As soon as they let out a scream, they fell to the ground and convulsed. They foamed at the mouth, and their body turned blue-black. They could not even utter a single word before they died. In the silent night, the shadows of the trees swayed, and the once tranquil mountain was now echoing with cries of agony, making the place seem eerie. The commotion startled the perched birds, causing them to fly off, and the entire Dragonsmount began to escalate in tension. The people of Panthergate did not expect the golden dragon to be so ferocious, let alone be so poisonous. Simon was the first to curse, "Damn you, beast!" Bang, bang, bang! He fired 3 shots at the golden dragon. The golden dragon reacted quickly, twisting its body into an S shape. However, the shots were fired from a close distance, so the bullets still hit its thick body. The golden dragon lifted its tail from the severe pain. and its entire body curved upward. "Simon, you're too cruel," Kiran shouted angrily. The golden dragon was in so much pain that it began biting even more violently. Some could not dodge in time, so they died on the spot from the poison. Many ran away out of fear. Simon was unable to stop it, so he fired 2 more shots. The golden dragon was exhausted because of its injury. He could not avoid the bullets in time and got hit again. However, it still tried its best to bite the men of Panthergate and rushed towards Simon. Simon did not expect the snake to be so ferocious. Not only did it survive 4 bullets to its body, it even fought back fearlessly. Furious, Simon aimed at the golden dragon's head. At that moment, Serena arrived and shouted in panic, "Simon, stop!" She lifted her hands and threw a handful of poison at Simon. Although he did not know it was poison, he still ran away when he saw that Serena could control the golden dragon. Bang! The bullet he fired hit the golden dragon's head, causing blood to splatter. The golden dragon instantly plopped onto the ground and twitched its tail and body. After a while, it lay on the ground with its white belly facing upward. "Golden dragon!" Kiran shouted. Serena was petrified. If the golden dragon died, Yvonne would die too. That was her birth charm. She quickly went over to check, but the golden dragon had completely stopped moving. It was dead. Kiran finally got himself to sit up. He wanted to go over to see the golden dragon, but he lost strength and fell again. "Kiran, are you okay?" Serena ran over to hug him. "Can it be saved?" Kiran looked at the golden dragon and asked. Serena shook her head. "It's gone." Kiran's head was spinning. He despised Simon for being so cruel, but he despised Lilian even more for letting this happen. "Hurry up and go to Bayville Hotel. Yvonne's life is in danger." Serena understood, so she helped him into the car and rushed to Bayville Hotel. They did not even have time to deal with the golden dragon's corpse. Bayville Hotel. Yvonne was still unconscious on the bed, but she was vomiting blood and on the brink of death. Kiran sat in the car and dialed Lilian's phone. Lilian had just parked her car in Neptune Cove's parking lot when she saw Kiran calling. She answered with a smile. "It seems like you have the strength to pick up the phone now. You bitch! How dare you murder your husband? I'm going to rape you." Kiran cursed at her. Lilian's pretty face turned pale and she trembled. "What did you say, you bastard? You better go to room 777 at Bayville Hotel right now or you'll be sorry." Kiran hung up right away without giving Lilian the chance to ask him anything. Lilian listened to the dial tone, and anger rushed to her head as Kiran's words echoed in her mind. "I'm going to castrate you." She started the car and rushed to Bayville Hotel. Kiran and Serena arrived at Bayville Hotel before Lilian. Serena helped Kiran into the lobby. When the receptionist saw that Kiran was injured, he quickly stepped forward and said in shock, "Mr. Kiran, go to your CEO's room right away," Kiran said. The receptionist had no idea what happened, but he nodded and pressed the elevator button. The 3 immediately went up to the 7th floor. The receptionist opened Yvonne's door and was about to say something to Kiran, but he pushed the receptionist away and walked into the back room. Yvonne was lying on the bed like a dead person. Her face was as white as paper and there were blood stains all over her face and body. "Miss Yvonne," the receptionist exclaimed. Kiran went up and placed a hand on Yvonne's pulse. It was weak, and she was barely holding on. Kiran was furious. If not for his injury, he could have stopped her suffering and helped her stay alive, but because of his injury, he could not put a stop to her pain at all. The birth charm and its master were codependent. Now that the golden dragon had been killed, it was absorbing Yvonne's life force too. Then, both would die quickly. To stop it, Yvonne would have to change her entire life trajectory and sever ties with the golden dragon. It was a difficult task, and Kiran was anxious to get it done. "What do we do?" Serena asked. "The only way she can survive is if her life force changes its trajectory." "How can it change its trajectory?" Serena asked. "She would have to regenerate her body completely and let it reconstruct itself so all connections to the golden dragon would be cut off." "Can you do it?" Serena was well aware of the connection between the birth charm and its master, and how often someone had died because of it. "I can't do it now," Kiran cursed. "Lilian, that bitch, did this to me first. I'll beat you up." Slap, Lilian's voice sounded, and she slapped Kiran's butt. Plop! Kiran's body flew onto the bed, creating a deep hole in the mattress. "You bitch, you." Kiran got up and cursed, but when he saw Lilian checking Yvonne's condition, he held himself back. Lilian had a slight frown on her face. On one hand, she was upset that Kiran cursed at her, but on the other hand, she was deep in thought. "Can you save her?" Serena quickly asked. Lilian did not speak. Then, she took off all of Yvonne's clothes. Kiran was lying next to Yvonne, trying to get up. However, he had no strength, so he could only stare. Soon, everyone noticed the colorful butterfly on Yvonne's belly. Lilian's expression sank. Chapter 406. That's the love spell! Serena recognized it. Love spell? Kiran remembered that both he and Lilian were also under that spell. Who was Yvonne's partner then? She has 2 birth charms, so maybe her life wouldn't be in danger, Serena said to Kiran with joy on her face. Kiran raised his eyebrows in shock. Having 2 birth charms was extremely difficult to cultivate. How was it possible? That meant that she had 2 lives. Kiran looked at Lilian. Is there a way to save her? Yes, Lilian said cheerfully. What is it? Say it. Kiran was happy that there was another way, since he could not use his method without his strength. You have to bed her to save her life, Lilian said to Kiran angrily. You're crazy. When Kiran heard that, his anger uncontrollably surged, and he continued, Bitch, if you don't have the power to heal her, just help me recover so I can save her. Lilian did not appreciate his tone. She walked over to slap him and said, Do you think that I wouldn't beat you to death? Kill him. I'll pay you. Lindsay's voice sounded from the door. She saw Kiran getting slapped with a smug look as it helped her vent her anger. Kiran was embarrassed that Lindsay saw him in this state, but he said to Lilian, Enough of this nonsense. Save her. Before Lilian could speak, Lindsay walked up to the naked Yvonne and picked up the crescent-shaped crystal pendant on her body. Her face was full of joy, and her eyes were brimming with tears. Kiran and the others were stunned. What kind of melodrama was this? Sister, she's the Ludwig family's long-lost daughter, Lindsay shouted ecstatically. What? Serena asked in shock. Lilian's eyes widened too, but it was filled with even more anger. Kiran remembered Wendell mentioning that the second daughter of the Ludwig family went missing after being kidnapped when she was a child. Could that child be Yvonne? Lindsay had already taken out the crystal pendant from her own neck and put it together with Yvonne's, forming a complete circle. Everyone was stupefied. What's wrong with my sister? Lindsay looked at Kiran and asked anxiously. She's going to die, Lilian responded coldly. Kiran, save my sister. I'll give you as much money as you want. I can call my dad right now, so just name a price. Lindsay was in so much panic that she looked extremely nervous. Kiran's mind was in chaos. What on earth was going on? How was the Maui Saintess also the second daughter of the Ludwig family? If that was the case, things are going to get way more complicated. Seeing as he was silent, Lindsay was even more impatient. She grabbed his arm and said, Stop sitting there and save her. However, he did not budge. Although Kiran was weak, how could a delicate woman like Lindsay be able to pull his entire weight? Kiran, there's a way for you to save Yvonne, Lilian suddenly said to Kiran. What is it? Kiran and Lindsay asked frantically. If you bet her, you can save her life, Lilian said sternly. Are you mad? Kiran cursed at Lilian angrily. It's true. It's up to you to believe me or not. Lilian was angry, but she sounded resolute. Is there no other way? Lindsay said to Lilian with a pleading tone. Lilian shook her head. There's no other way at the moment. Lindsay looked disappointed and hurt. She was in love with Kiran. If Kiran slept with Yvonne, how could she be with him after that? Were both sisters going to be his? They were not friends or lovers, but sworn enemies. There was no way they could have feelings for each other. Yet, she was torn by love, a love that should not even exist. Tui! Yvonne seemed to be getting even worse, and she spat out a mouthful of blood again. Sister! Lindsay shouted anxiously, but Yvonne did not react at all. Lindsay was desperate now, so she said to Kiran, Bed her, you can sleep with my sister. I give you permission. Kiran was cursing inwardly. Even if he wanted to, he had no strength at all. How the hell was he going to do it? He looked at Lilian and said, Think of a way. I already told you the solution, Lilian said coldly. Her face was filled with anger and even confusion. Kiran was contemplating on the bed when suddenly, his eyes lit up. Lilian, pull me down. Lilian was about to pull Kiran, but when she saw Kiran's gaze, she understood what he was trying to do, so she stopped. Lindsay went up to pull Kiran instead, but he did not budge. Then Serena went up to help. Kiran finally sat up, but he was still not strong enough to support himself, so he threw himself onto Yvonne. When Lilian saw that, she felt sad and lost for some reason. Lindsay and Serena also watched curiously. Kiran lowered his head and kissed Yvonne's bloody mouth. Lindsay's eyes widened and she covered her mouth. Not only was she afraid that she would scream, but she was also afraid that she would vomit. Lilian was heartbroken. Serena was about to speak, but after Kiran kissed Yvonne, she noticed the butterfly on her stomach seemed to come alive. Kiran felt as if his strength was increasing, and he did not feel as weak as before. Kiran was also deeply shocked. In his mind, there was only one possibility. The love spell was cast on him. When he thought of that, he felt his heart sank into an abyss. He was in disbelief. He saw Lilian's face from the corner of his eyes and noticed that she was equally as shocked. Once his doubts were confirmed, he cursed in his mind. He had been deceived. He did not know who had tricked him, but he knew that Zara did the right thing by going to the Xanders to break off the engagement. It was for the Xander family's sake and Snow's sake. He felt sorry for Snow because she was going to be left a widow. Kiran was so angry and humiliated that he lost focus. He uncontrollably coughed up blood, and so did Yvonne. Lilian took a deep breath and suppressed the feeling in her throat, but her face had become very pale. Kiran was going insane. Could it be? Serena spoke. Chapter 407. Could it be what? Lindsay could not understand what was going on. She was just worried about Yvonne, so she asked Serena impatiently. Serena looked at Kiran and Yvonne, saying, "Could it be that both Kiran and Yvonne have love spells in their bodies?" Love spell? Lindsay was stunned as it sounded like something out of a fairy tale. She was shocked that it existed in real life. A look of sorrow appeared on Lilian's face when Serena said that. She was overwhelmed with emotion, so she turned on her heels and walked out. Kiran heard Serena's words and knew that Lilian left, but he still did not get up. He realized after kissing Yvonne that he was regaining his strength, which meant that he could regain his strength by kissing Lilian too. Kiran was at a loss. Then, he was reminded of the dual female love spell from the books. The cultivation of the love spell required one male and one female. Once they were under the love spell, the couple would be together for the rest of their lives. The cultivation process of the love spell was key. However, incidents might still occur during that process, like a dual male or dual female love spell. In situations like this, the spellcaster would usually give up on the spell. However, this person was sick enough to plant a dual female love spell on him. That meant that he not only had to be in a relationship with both women, but he had to bed both of them too, or he would die. Lilian was trying to test to see if it was true earlier, which was why she asked him to sleep with Yvonne. Instead of doing that, he just kissed her to test it. And this was the result. If he had bedded her, he would have been dead by now. Lilian was so narcissistic that she could not accept seeing anyone else with him. Lilian could not even accept Snow even when she was his legally married wife, and she almost got him killed today just to vent her anger. If she could not accept his wife, how could she accept Yvonne when she had nothing to do with him? However, Kiran was not angry at Lilian, but at the person who cast the spell. They obviously wanted to torture him. Yvonne, the Maui Saintess, was not from Maui. Instead, she was the second daughter of the Ludig family, his archenemy. Casting the love spell on two different women was wicked enough, but planting it on the daughter of his archenemy was diabolical. Did that mean that the York family would have no descendants at all? Kiran's heart was filled with hatred. Too much had happened tonight, and he was in too much shock and anger. After some time, he finally regained his strength. Yvonne's breathing became stable too, and she was no longer in critical condition. Kiran got up and saw that Lindsay and Serena were still there. He hopped onto the ground and said, "Help clean Yvonne up, I have something to do." After saying that, he quickly walked out before they could even agree. He went outside to look for Serena's car, but saw that his car was still there. He walked over and saw Lilian sitting inside, frowning gloomily. Although Kiran was angry, he was calmer now, so he opened the car door and asked, "What's wrong?" Lilian did not say anything, but her face was as cold as ice. She was obviously angry. "What on earth is wrong with you?" Kiran lost his patience with her and shouted. "Shut up!" Lilian scolded. "Shut up! Will the problem magically disappear if I shut up?" Kiran asked furiously. "If you don't know what's happening, why are you asking me? How would I know? What about your spell? Didn't my mother cast it on you? Why don't you ask yourself who cast your spell?" Lilian asked without showing any signs of backing down. Kiran's heart trembled. Did his master cast this spell? All these years, he had not interacted with anyone except for his master. His master was like a parent to him, so he would never hurt him. "I think it's strange," said Lilian after regaining her composure. "You're saying someone is manipulating us on purpose, right?" Lilian was silent for a moment, and then she nodded. "I think that someone is messing with your marriage with Snow behind the scenes." "Why? Is it because they don't want the York family to have any descendants?" Kiran frowned. "Medical care was not as advanced 15 years ago, so according to the methods used at the time, it's possible." Lilian's cheeks turned red. Kiran looked at the arrogant and beautiful Lilian and said, "It seems like they know you well. Otherwise, they wouldn't have chosen this method." "Know me? No one knows me except for my mom," Lilian said. "Narcissist," Kiran muttered. "Shut up!" Lilian yelled angrily. "I got it!" Kiran exclaimed. "What do you mean?" Lilian asked hurriedly. My mom is a narcissist too. They knew that you would turn out like her after she adopted you, so they created this dual female love spell on purpose to prevent us from being together. Gasp. Lilian gasped, and her eyes grew wide. Kiran's explanation made sense. They must be evil for coming up with such a plan so long ago. I'm not sure, but I think it's plausible. Perhaps they even wanted to create an abusive relationship. You mean you and Yvonne? Lilian asked. Kiran nodded. Yes. If Yvonne and I fell in love and I found out about her lineage, what do you think would happen to us? If that was the case, the two of us would be suffering for the rest of our lives. How could their plans be so cruel? Lilian calmed down and began contemplating their motives behind this. There's one more problem. Kiran changed the topic and said with a deep voice. The Quinn family. Lilian read his mind. Kiran nodded. Yes. How did Yvonne become the granddaughter of the Quinn family, and how did they know that I would be involved with her? Lilian fell silent, and her eyes fell deep in thought. Chapter 408. The two of them sat in the car quietly. This was their first time being so calm around each other while they contemplated the problem. After a few minutes, Lilian said, Send me back. Then she closed her eyes. Although Kiran still had many questions, he knew that there was no use asking when he saw her close her eyes. He started the engine and said while driving, I want to kill Simon and everyone in Panthergate. You should think about it carefully. Once you kill them, it won't just be Dragongate, Liongate, or Tigergate that will seek revenge on you. It's likely that they would fear your methods of eradication. I don't care about that. If they want to fight with fire, I'll fight with fire too, Kiran said murderously while looking at the road ahead. Just make sure you give it some thought. I'm reminding you that no matter which organization you destroy, they still have subdivisions that could form a new Wolfgate or Panthergate, not to mention a new leader. I don't care. I'll kill anyone who stands in my way. You. Lilian sounded reproachful, but she kept quiet in the end. As long as you stop making me lose my power. Kiran looked at Lilian seriously. That'll depend on my mood, Lilian said nonchalantly. How could you still be in a bad mood? I can't touch Snow now, nor can I touch you or Yvonne. Kiran sounded helpless. What? Are you still hoping that Yvonne and I will sleep with you? Lilian sneered. I won't agree even if you ask for it. Kiran responded coldly. How dare you? Who said I'm asking for it? In your dreams, Lilian mocked. I only have my wife, Snow. I don't know why this happened, but I'll ask my master when I see him. I'll solve this problem. There's one way to solve it, Lilian said suddenly. What? Kiran said happily. You castrate yourself, ridding yourself of any desires, and we can all live happily ever after, Lilian joked. You... Kiran was furious. What? You can't bear to lose that worthless thing of yours? Lilian mocked. The next generation of the York family depends on it, Kiran retorted angrily. Do it artificially, then. I believe that Snow would agree since that foolish woman loves you so much. Although Lilian was joking, there was a hint of jealousy in her tone. You're jealous. As if. Lilian scoffed with disdain. If I impregnate you and Yvonne at the same time, will our lives be safe? Kiran joked. Dream all you want. Even if I were lying in bed right now, I bet you wouldn't even be able to do it, Lilian sneered. I'm not interested. I'd rather hug my wife to sleep, Kiran said deliberately to annoy her. Hug her, then. Although you can't taste her, I'm sure looking and touching isn't that bad. Lilian's tongue got sharper. Meanwhile, she thought, that bastard, how dare he provoke me, he better watch out. Lilian, you're still quite innocent, huh? Kiran said with an evil smile. What do you mean? Lilian asked. Even if I can't sleep with Snow, wouldn't she need sperm to get pregnant artificially? Kiran said suggestively. Yeah. So? Lilian asked. How do you think the sperm is obtained? Kiran smirked. You... How could you be so shameless? Lilian blushed. Snow loves me a lot, and I love her a lot too. Kiran smiled wickedly. Lilian gaped at him doubtfully. Kiran stopped talking, but he had a triumphant look on his face. Lilian was cursing inwardly. How could Snow do all of that for him? What was she thinking? Also, why did he tell her that? How shameless could he be? Kiran saw the changes in Lilian's face and felt relieved. He had no intention of going up against her anymore. The warning she gave him today served as a lesson for him to be more cautious in the future. He knew she would never hurt him. His focus was to avenge the York family. His vendetta was much more important than his love life. Although that was what he thought, he was still angry at Lilian for treating him like this. There was no way to crack the code of the dual female love spell for the time being, so he could only wait it out. Kiran drove to Neptune's Cove, and Lilian got out of the car. Kiran looked at Lilian and said, Feel free to look for me when you want to give birth to my child. Lilian shivered in anger. but she turned to look at him with a bright smile on her face. "If you want me to have your child, would you even dare to do it the natural way? You're evil!" Kiran did not expect Lilian to give him such a reply. Kiran watched her enchanting back and scoffed inwardly. Forget about 2 women. He would be able to take on multiple women if he wanted to. He was the miracle doctor after all. However, the only one in his heart was Snow, not these other women. He drove to Xander Corporation next. When he arrived, Snow was busy working. She saw Kiran, and she instantly lit up with joy. "You're done." Kiran nodded. "Why are you in such a mess?" Snow asked worriedly when she saw him covered in dirt, grass, and blood. Kiran was happy to see how concerned she was. He opened his arms to hug her and said, "Honey, I'm so sorry." Snow trembled as she pictured him with another woman. Did he cheat? In the mountains? She quickly sniffed the scent on his body, and he reeked of perfume, but it was not just one scent. It was Lilian, Serena, Yvonne, and Lindsay. What did he do? Snow's heart sank. Kiran felt apologetic, so he lowered his head to kiss her. Chapter 409. Snow had no idea what Kiran had done, but the scenarios in her imagination erased her concern for him disappearing and replaced it with madness and anger. After thinking of what he might have done, she would rather listen to the devil than listen to his words of affection. She was so disappointed in him that she could stab him. She pushed him away. Kiran did not expect Snow to push him so hard, so he hit the table. The butt that Lilian had spanked caused him severe pain, so he screamed. He held his stinging buttocks and sucked through his teeth. Snow was stunned. "What's wrong? My ass hurts like hell," Kiran said. "Your ass hurts?" Snow asked. "Do you have hemorrhoids?" Kiran was speechless. He looked at his adorable wife and wanted to tell her how beautiful and pure she was. How could he have hemorrhoids just because his butt hurt? However, he could not get the words out as he was in pain. Kiran lifted his hands to take off his shirt. Snow did not mind, as she liked the sight of Kiran's muscular pecs. Every time she was in his arms, she would sneak a naughty touch to his chest. "Are there any scars on my back?" Kiran turned his back to Snow. Snow's good mood disappeared. "Kiran, are you playing with me?" She thought that he had slept with other women and was trying to gain her sympathy by pretending to be hurt. Kiran was shocked. How could there be no wounds from Lilian's attack? No scars? There's nothing. It's flawless. Snow thought that Kiran was teasing her on purpose. She got so annoyed that she walked over to him and slapped him on the back. "Ouch!" Kiran cried in pain and jumped up. It felt like Snow was pricking him with a needle. "What's the point of pretending?" Snow asked angrily. "What about my buttocks?" Kiran said as he took his pants off. "You scoundrel! This is my office, not our home," Snow yelled, but Kiran was already taking it off. Snow looked at it and saw no problem, which made her even angrier, so she went up to slap his butt. "Ouch!" Kiran was not faking it. He screamed like a slaughtered pig and ran out to avoid her. Snow was in a daze as she looked at her hand and then at Kiran. She thought that he was overacting. How could he continue acting after he fooled around with other women? The thought of that made Snow want to hit him even more. "Kiran, you can stop the act now!" She chased after him and continued to beat him violently. Kiran was crying inwardly. He quickly turned around and shielded himself with his hands. "No, don't hit me. I have to make a call." "Who are you calling?" Snow asked angrily. "Lilian." After saying that, he took out Snow's phone to call Lilian. Snow was annoyed. She crossed her arms and stared at Kiran coldly. "Put it on speaker so I can listen." All Kiran cared about right now was his hatred for Lilian, so he dialed her number and put it on speaker. Lilian answered after it rang twice. "You just got home and you miss me already?" Lilian's tone sounded like a lover's quarrel to Snow's ears. She was so angry she could kill someone. She stared at Kiran with her cold eyes, feeling sad and desperate. She had given everything to Kiran, and he had promised her eternal love, but he turned out to be a fuckboy. Unaware of Snow's thoughts, he said angrily to the phone. "Lilian, you're evil." "Evil? What do you mean?" Lilian held back her laughter. "You hit me and purposely made it so that it wouldn't bruise my skin, but I'm hurting internally," Kiran said through gritted teeth. Snow was shocked, but she still thought that he was lying. How could Lilian hit him when Kiran was so powerful? Although Lilian was powerful too, it was just impossible. She looked at Kiran with flames in her beautiful eyes and thought, "Just continue pretending. Let's see how long you can keep up the act." Kiran did not think that Snow would misunderstand, so he said to the phone, "Lilian, my back hurts so much it's killing me. But there aren't any visible wounds. How is that not evil?" "So, that's what you're talking about." Lilian now understood what he was referring to, so she said, "Wonderful. If people know that you're injured, they wouldn't be afraid of you anymore, so I'm doing this to protect you. Protect my foot. It'll take longer for my injuries to heal like this. How am I going to kill Simon and Panthergate now? Kiran said angrily. Don't go then, Lilian said with a smile. Is this why you didn't stop me just now? Was it because you knew that I couldn't kill anyone? Kiran asked angrily. You promised me to develop Xander Corporation and enter the Western medicine market. Have you forgotten? Lilian sneered. I remember. So, why are you still going around killing people? Lilian felt like she was talking to an idiot. You bitch! You're too cruel. Kiran knew that he was being played, so he cursed. Kiran, I won't forget what you just called me. The next time I hit you, I'll make sure it's extra painful. Then, we'll see if you still have the guts to curse at me, Lilian said coldly. Go to hell, Lilian. Kiran could not help but curse at the woman again. Curse more. If I die, I'll be buried with the York family, and my tombstone would read, Kiran's fiancé. Lilian provoked him further. You... Kiran's chest was heaving with anger. I don't want to talk to you right now. You should just go home and let that little wife of yours take care of you since you can't lie on your back right now. Heh. Lilian let out a ringing laugh. However, her face was flushed, and panic appeared in her eyes. Kiran listened to the dial tone in frustration. He threw the phone on the sofa with great force, causing him more pain, so he groaned. Snow listened to their conversation and was certain that Kiran hated Lilian, so she asked concernedly, Honey, what's wrong? Kiran was about to speak when the door opened, and Serena walked in. She saw Kiran only had his briefs on, so she burst out laughing. Wow! Kiran, are you having a good time with Snow? Serena teased while laughing. Bullshit! Kiran retorted. Chapter 410. Tesk. Serena sighed and looked at Snow, saying, You see, Snow? If you don't satisfy Kiran, he will go mad. Shut up! Stop bothering me! Kiran said angrily. Snow had already calmed down by now. Knowing that something had happened, she immediately tugged on Kiran's arm and said, Honey, what's wrong? Let's talk inside. After saying that, Kiran took out some medicine and walked toward the lounge inside. Snow shot Serena a glance and followed him in. Kiran entered and lay down on the bed, placing the medicine bottle next to him. He looked at Serena coming in and said, Apply the medicine on me. Are you sure, Kiran? Are you asking me to touch you when your wife is here? Serena teased. Shut up! Snow doesn't know yet, so stop acting like you don't know too, Kiran retorted. Serena giggled and went up to slap Kiran's buttocks. Ouch! Kiran screamed. Snow quickly took Serena's hand and asked, Serena, what's wrong? Snow, Kiran is going to ruin your life, so you should get divorced as soon as possible, Serena said, faking a look of sympathy. She picked up Kiran's medicine bottle and poured the powder on his back. Ouch! Kiran could not help but cry out loud. Serena smiled and said, Kiran, I bet you won't even scream or say it hurts if your enemy stabs you. Is this your way of gaining sympathy from me and Snow? Stop with the nonsense and help me treat my wound. Kiran was annoyed that she saw right through him. Serena stopped teasing and put her hands on his back to spread the medicinal powder all over. After applying it, she saw bright red scars on Kiran's fair skin. He looked like blades had cut him. Ah, Kiran and Snow exclaimed at the same time. Kiran was exclaiming from the pain, but Snow was exclaiming from the shock. It seems like Lilian did not go easy on you this time. Instead of teasing, Serena sounded angry. Kiran did not say a word, but beads of cold sweat were forming on his forehead. Lilian was a tigress earlier, not an ethereal fairy. However, Kiran understood where she was coming from. Although she had the beauty of a goddess, he still called off their engagement, and she had to watch while he fell in love with Snow. He even bossed her around and asked her to do things for him. Any woman would get angry if they were in her position. Kiran thought that her anger was justified. Honey, what's going on? Why did she hit you? I'll go to her now. Snow blamed herself for doubting her husband, and her anger for Lilian grew. Honey, don't go. Kiran held her hand. Snow sat beside Kiran's bed with tears in her beautiful eyes. Kiran, you're so lucky, Serena said. What do you mean? Kiran asked. You've been set up with two women. One of them is as beautiful as a fairy and can turn into a tigress when she's mad. The other woman is so enchanting that men are willing to take their hearts out of their chests to love her. How are you going to navigate your relationship with both of them? The more Serena talked, the happier she looked. Suddenly, she said with a smile, not to mention, you have to have a threesome with two women. I wonder what would be going through your mind when you see them. I bet you can't even get it up, ha ha. She could not hold herself back from laughing. Kiran was speechless. Snow was puzzled, so she asked worriedly, Honey, what's going on? And then there's Snow, God's favorite, and the cold CEO. who has now become your wife. Although you very much love her, all you can do is look at her or touch her. Isn't that such a bummer? Serena continued teasing Kiran. Annoyed, Kiran was cursing in his mind, but he took Snow's hand and said, I have to tell you what happened earlier tonight. Snow grabbed his hand and nodded eagerly. Kiran recounted how Yvonne was committing suicide when he found her, so he went to see Lilian. Snow gripped Kiran's hands tightly, especially at the part where he almost got killed by Panthergate. Even the golden dragon had died. Snow was so nervous that her body was trembling. She blamed herself for misunderstanding. Kiran, I think you should talk about the dual female love spell. That's the most important part. What's the dual female love spell? Snow asked curiously. Serena looked at Snow. Let me tell you what it is. You know how love spells are created so that a man and a woman would have to be together or else they would die? Snow nodded. Dual female love spells are when a man is under the spell with two different women. Did you just say that the two women were Lilian and Yvonne? Snow recalled what Serena said and grew anxious. It's your turn to explain. Instead of answering her, Serena turned to Kiran. Kiran held Snow's hand tightly. Honey, I'm so sorry. Snow was confused as she struggled to understand what was going on. She stared at Kiran and said, What on earth is going on? Kiran shook his head and said helplessly, I don't know the specifics, but for now, you and I can only go by the title of husband and wife. It can't be official. Snow shivered violently. She was reminded of how the harp played by itself, and Kiran even vomited blood when they tried to be together. She was overwhelmed with discomfort, but she quickly looked at Kiran. No matter what happens, you're still my husband, and I'm your wife. Kiran was touched. He held her hand firmly and said, I love you too. As long as you don't leave me, I will find a solution. I will not love anyone else other than you. Snow's heart was full. She nodded happily, tears streaming down her face. I'll be waiting for you. I'll wait for you my entire life. Snow, you can't wait that long, Serena suddenly said. Well, why not? Snow asked Serena when her hope was dashed immediately. Kiran was beaten violently by Lilian today, which means that Kiran isn't in control of the love spell. Lilian is. If Lilian wants to attack him, he has no way of fighting it. What do you think would happen if she wanted to sleep with him? Snow was getting nervous and Kiran was filled with rage. Then Serena said, The best solution is,